It's 94.7 FM. Our local guest segments are brought to us by Turnkey Nerds, 402-426-NERD. Today we have Ben Tapper with Tapper Chiropractic joining us today. It's been a little while since you've been in here. You came in when you first opened like a year ago or so. And we'd just love to have an update on how you're doing. Again, get reacquainted with you and everything. So thank you for taking time to talk with us today.
Yeah, thanks, Kelly. Thanks for having me on. It's good to be here.
So, again, you have been in chiropractic for how long?
Well, I'd like to say my whole life because I come from a family of chiropractors. So my dad, he practiced for 43 years, and so I grew up with in the chiropractic kind of philosophy and mindset. Mm-hmm. And so as a dad, as a chiropractor, it made our family dynamics pretty interesting.
Yeah. So that means, did you feel like you had to sit upright, sit straight all the time? A little bit extra pressure there?
Well, that's it was definitely on the topic of conversations. My dad always, he'd always adjust us, especially we try to do the bedtime angle as, hey, Dad, I need an adjustment for bedtime, right. And so I probably been adjusted more on a bed than a chiropractic table in itself as growing up. But my dad would always check us and so that was looking back, it's just such a funny upbringing, as a dad, as a chiropractor. But I'm thankful for that, and it kind of led me to where I am today. But I always like to think he knew that I was gonna be a chiropractor because as a young child he'd always have me palpate his spine.
Oh, sure.
Which is kind of weird to think about, but he'd always tell me, hey, like, can you find the areas of imbalance and the areas of where things need to be worked on in the spine, and so he'd always have my fingers run down the spine and to feel, and mm-hmm. So I'm very thankful for that because it helped me develop my skills today.
Yeah. Do you do that to your kids?
I don't have them palpate my spine, but I probably I don't carry on that legacy, but I do correct them on posture, and I do, hey, the posture is the window to the spine, and I tell them it's important, and but these computers and the technology now, we have tech neck and we slouch, and it just promotes this anterior head carriage, and so we need to be focusing on posture. It is a big thing, and we need to instill that at a young age because as the twig is bent, as grows the tree. If we're developing these bad habits early on, guess what? That posture is going to reflect that later on in life. So it's very important that we do have good posture.
So you started off in Omaha with a clinic, right?
Yeah, I had a clinic in Village Point for over. The clinic was there for 12 years. I took it over after the second year of operation. I took it over from a chiropractor and then bought it from him. And I had the clinic for 10 years. And then it was a very, successful clinic. We were serving lots of people. We had that clinic until about 2 years ago. Then I sold it.
Mm-hmm. And then you decided to come up to Blair. You moved closer to Blair. You decided to kind of move everything up to closer to Blair. But that's partly it's a relational thing, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, we moved out in the country. I like to say God's country. It's really beautiful, but I made a promise to my kids, hey, I would spend more time with them, and that was the whole reason why we moved out to the country. I grew up in the country. I wanted to have that for my kids. Mm-hmm. I wanted to have free range kiddos. Right. I wanted them to be out in the woods, and I wanted to be out outside, and it's kind of funny because we lived in town and we had this crazy busy street, and cars would just fly by, and I was turning to that old man and be like, slow down, and it's like, and it was just like high stressful situations where like the kids, they'd go outside. I'm like, no, just come inside. I don't want you guys outside. Yeah. I was like so protective over them in town. But when I moved out of the country, it's just the opposite. I'm like, go outside, guys, go outside, go outside. And
we want to go to the park. Head outside.
Head outside, guys. Let's go out, spend out time out there. And so, that's, and that was my reason for moving out of the country in this way. But again, I made a promise before we moved out here. I promised my kids I would spend more time with them, and that was the goal. Because the clinic in Omaha was taking so much of my time, and not only that, it was taking my physical time, but it was taking kind of like headspace, and I was just constantly thinking about the clinic or doing this and that, and I wasn't really present. And so present time consciousness is a real thing, and being present when I was home and being intentional with them, and they would call me out. They're like, Dad, you're working harder since we moved out here. And so that led me to really kind of revamp my priorities and realize that our most valuable asset is our time, and to focus on time. I used to tell patients, hey, your greatest asset is your health. And I had a guy that had comorbidities. He was obese, and he told me, he goes, I'm going to challenge you on that. He goes, your greatest asset isn't your health. And I was kind of like, ego driven at the time. I was like, well, this guy's telling me, trying to educate me about health. And then he goes, well, what can health buy? And I looked at him, and I sat there, and I looked at him, and I looked right in the eye. I said, you are exactly right, my friend.
Yeah.
Health buys time. Yeah. Time is our greatest asset.
Right.
And so, yes, we can't just disregard our health, but, looking at time, we're only here for a short time. And so it's very important to value our time and to eliminate the distractions and really focus on what's important. And to me, my children are important, and spending time with them, creating memories, and having that intentional time with them is the most important, because they're only little once, and I want to be the best dad I can be with them. And it's not about being super successful. I feel like that's a lie that we're told in this country, that we got to work really hard and do these things and chase that American dream. Well, I think there's balance. We got to have balance. And Zig Ziglar said life's like a bicycle wheel. You got to spend time in each wheel, that spoke of the wheel, or you're not going to have balance. You got to have health and finances and your wife and spouse or your children and all that. And so I feel like I didn't have that balance in life earlier. And and I feel like some people will argue, well, balance is it's not really attainable, and I get that. But again, we need to really spend time in each area of life that's important. And I work in the category of urgent and importance. If it's important and urgent, that's where I'm usually operating and getting those things done. But again, going back to the time issue, that's where it all stems from.
Finding contentment before everything else.
Yeah, really. And just, and it's the key word is intentional too. Yeah. Because, and being intentional with your time, and not just like being lackadaisical and not, realizing how important it is, but time is so important. And being intentional. Now,
just to kind of segue, you're talking about balance, and that does go into chiropractic work, because that's a big part of what you do, is help people not only, balance time, because that's what you're trying to do, but help them be able to have a better life with their time.
Right. I mean, there's balance different, theoretically, there's balance, there's physiologically, there's balance. I mean, there's a lot of different areas of balance that we can refer to, but yes, it can tie into chiropractic. Absolutely. I mean, chiropractors, obviously we all have kind of a different niche in chiropractic. We all might focus on different things. One might be sports, one might be extremities, one might be pediatrics, one might be, geriatrics or whatever. But the whole point of chiropractic is really restoration and maintenance of the integrity of the nervous system. It's really to help the body function well from a physiological standpoint, and hence restoring balance in the body by removing obstructions, allowing the body to heal. And that's what it's all about.
So, yeah, you kind of think about it, when you first think chiropractic's like, oh, they're moving the bones and stuff like that, or adjusting that way. But it's actually to do things like you just mentioned, remove obstacles from the nervous system.
Right. And so, just going to chiropractic for pain is kind of like going to the bank just for the pens, right? You know what I mean? And so we really need to understand that chiropractic is so much more than just pain-based. Mm-hmm. And that's why, in the insurance realm, they just say chiropractic is like some manipulative therapy, or it's for they bill for manipulations. And I'm like, well, it's actually very specific, and that's why we call it an adjustment, because we are looking, and a chiropractor is trained on where, what, and when to adjust. And so it's very specific. And, we do a lot of work and homework on figuring out where, when, and what to adjust by palpation or x-ray analysis or thermography or whatever it may be, and range of motions. And so we're trying to figure that out. And by putting that motion in that spine in a specific line of correction can do wonders for a patient, just on not just a pain base, but just a functional base. Mm-hmm. I had a lady in 2017 that was deaf in her left ear. We adjusted her upper cervical, which all the neurology to that upper cervical, through that upper cervical innervates the bones of the face, the inner middle ear, the pituitary gland, bone, the scalp. And she came in on the next visit, and she was in my exam room, and my staff said, hey, so-and-so wants to talk to you. And I went in the exam room, and she was crying. I was like, oh, my goodness, what did I do? Yeah. And then she said, after the adjustment, my hearing came back in the left ear. She was 100% deaf in her ear, and it sounded like a static radio. So it goes to show you the power of what chiropractic can do, but it really is it's the simplest form of healthcare. It's just going in and removing obstructions, and so it can help the patient overall.
Well, it just goes into the reminder that our body is wonderfully made.
Amen.
And it is also very confusingly made. You never know what will affect what.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's all interconnected, and that's one of the problems with healthcare. We compartmentalize healthcare for ease of study, and also for you see that in our educational systems with the body being so compartmentalized. I get it; it's easier to study that way, but we forget and neglect one key foundational point is that the body is one unit working together. It's one giant system working together. Okay. And so, but we compartmentalize it. Now you see it in these professions that we compartmentalize it with specialties. You got all these different specialists but really it's one unit. And, if you look at all these different types of professions and doctors in the allopathic world, they'll look at the body like a wilted plant, and they'll see it and they'll want to cut off its leaves or medicate that plant or whatnot. And really the key is to give the plant water, and it can be well. Not to say that there's not a time and place for surgery or to cut off its leaves or to change the chemical composition of the soil, but we need to give that plant water, and it can be well. And so, God made your body to self-heal, self-regulate. As long as we give that body what it needs, it can be well. And that's really the key. And we have to understand not to become our diagnosis too, because there's always hope, and that's the biggest thing. Hope is the most powerful drug there is. And I know full well that your body's ability to heal itself and to overcome disease like anything is far greater than anyone has permitted us to believe. And we have to give the body and trust the system, and we have to eat well, move well, think well, pray well, and we can be well.
So if somebody is kind of going through an issue, pain or things like that, when should they consult or go to, find chiropractic help to see if that could help them?
Yeah, well, pain is the last thing to show up. So if something is aggravating, obviously a fall and trauma can cause pain instantly. But if pain just comes out of the blue, especially, then it's probably something that's been there for a long time, right? So you can have the weight of a dime on a nerve before you have any symptom, okay, pressing on a nerve. And so it's important to, get checked. If you do have pain, again, pain is the last thing to show up, and it's the first thing to leave. But again, I always look at the spine. We only get one spine, so we need to take care of it. And I'm in the business of spinal hygiene. It's really, just like no difference than, dental hygiene. We brush our teeth every day. Well, I think that getting adjusted is important for overall function, even though you don't have any pain. I think it's important just to get checked periodically, make sure that we're moving properly to help prevent injuries and to allow you to move better, function better. And the beauty of chiropractic is that when we put motion in that spine, we understand that 90% of stimulation, nutrition to the nervous system is generated by movement in the spine. And that's what chiropractors do. We put motion in that spine where areas aren't moving like they should. And that's just going to help overall function and stimulation. And so I do recommend, just for maintenance visits, just coming a couple times a month to get adjusted and for just overall wellness.
Is that also part muscle memory? Sometimes what happens is you get adjusted, but your muscles have been trained in such a way it tries to pull things back to a different point.
Right. There's different stresses. Obviously, sitting, the average American sits, 8 hours a day, and that's a third of our life that we're sitting. We sleep in a mattress a third of our life. So what are we doing that other third of our life? Are we moving, or what are we doing, right? So it's important that to move, but again, stresses play a role in that. And so, we sit more than we should, and sitting to your spine is like sugar to your teeth. So even though you get adjusted, you might sit behind a desk 8 hours a day, 10 hours a day. There's a lot of emotional stresses that we're exposed to. Turn on the news. You got both sides of the news. They're just like pulling the strings. They're trying to divide us more now than ever before. And you have all this, fear mongering being pushed on the media. The world's sky's falling. And I swear that a lot of the news people love to push that, but it can cause us to be in a stressful state. It puts us in a sympathetic fight or flight state. So we have a lot of emotional factors. We have a lot of spiritual factors that play a role. Then we have more chemical stresses than ever before. We're exposed to more chemicals now than ever before. I swear we're exposed to more chemicals in a month than our grandparents were in their lifetime. Right. Look at all the chemicals in our foods, the GMOs. We have a lot of foods that look better, smell better, taste better, but they're nutritionally bankrupt foods. And so we have to really look at what we're putting into our body, because that can cause imbalances in the spine. Hippocrates said, look to the spine first in all diseases. So think about this. We live our life through our nervous system. Every thought, every cell, every tissue, every organ in the body is transmitted and controlled by the nervous system. So we have to view that nervous system and protect it, and it's housed in the spine. So that's what chiropractic's big idea is all about. It's so much more than just zooming in on a nerve that's being pinched. It's all about function and physiology and really overall stimulation of that nervous system to help the body be well. So.
All right. So if somebody wants to learn more about your philosophies, about what you have to say or how you like to approach, what would be the best way for them to do that?
I mean, you can just come into the office. You can come to Tapper Chiropractic in Blair here. You can call the office, schedule a visit with me. You can consult with me. I don't charge anything for just talking to me. Coming in and you want to have a consult with me and talk to see if this is something you want to pursue. Love to be able to help you. Again, I believe that life is not what you gather, it's what you scatter. And I view healthcare as a ministry. And what would the world look like if all the doctors in the world viewed healthcare as a ministry? We're here to serve and serve others, and that's what it's all about.
All right. Well, again, Tapper Chiropractic, and you were over by Casey's.
Yes, then Jimmy John's. Yep, I'm in the same building as Jimmy John's. Yep.
Yeah. So again, easy location, great, nice place to be able to find you there. And you've been, again, coming up just over a year that you've been in Blair, but you've been a chiropractor for a few more years than that.
Yes. Yep. I've been practicing now. I'm in my entering into my 13th year of practice. So, I like to say that I'm not starting over. I'm starting from experience in this town. But Blair's been really good to me. It's been a lot of fun to get to know the people in the community. It's been a great community. I feel very blessed, and I feel at home here. So very thankful.
And so the other message from what I've kind of gathered is work on being proactive instead of waiting till things happen that make you not be able to function properly.
Amen. Right. I mean, 80% of Americans are reactive when it comes to health care. And so our level of health is a continuum. We're either moving towards health and wellness or sickness and disease, and the choice is ours. But a lot of people wait till they have pain, or they wait till they get sick, or they lose their health before they want to do something about it. And so, I mean, Benjamin Franklin said an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And it's so much easier to stay well than it is to get well.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Well, thank you again for coming in and giving us the update. Anytime you have something going on, let us know about it. We'd love to talk about it.
Awesome. Thank you, Kelly.